Hey gang, Kevin here, Life22, and we are back for another edition of the Luke Files. So, finishing up what we started a little while ago. So we're going to pick up on page 5 and from the second paragraph. Let's start with freedom of speech. How did this case progress from physical mail to Ryan Gary's personal residence being his first ever site of what would be later on become, you're such an idiot, open quotes, this is what Luke Winky's handwriting looks like, close quotes, as January 2022 situation led to October 2023's accusation, question mark. As time has shown, there is no way to prove who is behind an electronic device. It took a Back to the Future Part 2 style, open quotes, Western Union letter from 70 years ago, close quotes, style delivery of an order of protection from North Carolina delivery to my front door in Olean, New York, to see if it was me personally behind the now deleted Twitter/X account. As this case has shown, all kinds of people have passed through my house with and or without my permission. And last I knew, the Cattaraugus County Police weren't required to wear body cameras all the times. Can you imagine if a house guest had picked up my phone, tweeted impersonal obscenities at anyone they deemed to be a retarded piece of garbage, and then forged my signature on the United Nations Family Court issued order of protections from Timbuktu? God is watching all moments of time, and God knows I was taken away from my home as I had just begun employment at Sky Homes Medical Transportation that very week. Andrew Burrell and Ryan Gary do not share a website for unsuspecting onlookers to give 1 to 5 star ratings of their choosing to, but I bless them as they discuss business matters by shared mini fridge without my ever having met them face to face. Still, all capital letters. And again, God is watching always. As my vehicle was forcibly left parked in Buffalo against my personal wishes on June 30th, 2023, as it was suddenly decided that the May 2023 ordeal was suddenly legally considered a probation violation. A week later, as I sat in Chautauqua County Jail without internet to Google search necessary legal information, on June 27th, 2023, a case from Colorado in 2014, similar to my own, had been overturned in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. It is a violation of the equal protection under the law to not overturn a plea deal case simply because it did not go to trial, for plenty of reasons. I will continue to lay out this, open quotes, history shall repeat itself, close quotes, declared letter to John Sinatra's God-fearing courtroom continues below. In my experience, again, making a false statement in court gets a defendant a Class A misdemeanor. Buffalo, New York, Uber and Lyft customers are very fond of attempting to tip their drivers in cocaine, something the state of Oregon decriminalized in 2022. I look back at the New York Libertarian Party's workings with family fond memories as I recall former state party chairman Mark Glagowski spending a good portion of his life advocating for cocaine total legalization, and I do recall the Sinatra apartment landlord saying to me on August 10th, as he gave my father a tour of his now apartment, that he liked everything libertarians had to say. I recall only having been in Niagara County Jail from January 2022 to April 2022 until a plea deal agreement had been reached, my awareness via paperwork. It had only been a few months off the road of driving for rideshare apps that this April 2022 plea deal had happened. It took up until June to August of 2023 at Chautauqua County Jail to finally analyze my mental health state of being via a mental health analyst of John Sinatra's personal liking, so that there was no, open quotes, borderline personality traits, close quotes, diagnosis in between June of 2022 and April of 2020. January of 2022 and April of 2022. I am very happy to remember the Buffalo, New York Sinatra landlord's personal gratitude towards libertarian activism, but on a deeply empathetic human note, I want him to remember that although Oregon decriminalized cocaine in 2022, we still lack the science to prove how long the substance itself remains in the human body and its overall effects on the human brain. I want nothing horrific to happen to the health of the Buffalo Sinatra landlord if he and Mark Glogowski were to venture to Oregon for professional reasons. I apologize for sidetracking, but all I recall in between all the months of January 2022 and April 2022 was Alexander Anzalone, who has since abandoned his very case existence, telling me that plea deals one second, folks. All right. That plea deals help us achieve less time than taking cases to trial do. As I sat in Niagara County Jail privately reminiscing on my days as an Uber and Lyft driver in Buffalo, transporting healthcare workers to and from during the initial days of the COVID pandemic. Bible tells us that God created the government and a Quran? I feel like he spelled it wrong, though. Here in Chautauqua County Jail informs me that there is never an atom of injustice in any country's justice system. So my very strong faith and my God, open quotes, my God is always watching, close quotes, approach to life strengthens my personal belief that the plea deals achieving any defendant less time is the equivalent to metaphysical informing the heavens that they do in fact regret all negative energies produced due to their own actions, which resulted in God himself maneuvering that very person into the chained defendant position, required to raise their cuffed hand and say, open quotes, so help me God, close quotes. On the solitary and sincere note, however, my God, those months ranging in between January 2022 to April 2022 were the most somber, confusing, and mentally dazed moments of this entire chapter of my life. I was abruptly taken from my usual life's affairs during COVID Omicron. Fast forward to the present era of November of 2023. Thank God I am in quite a sober state of mind as I write this very long letter, recollecting every moment I possibly can from these past 2 years, as I also sit and recall many people who have died from fentanyl overdose. I can only imagine how home improvement actor Tim Allen spent his 2 years incarcerated due to his illegal dealing of cocaine. Again, I shall remind the readers of this very letter that we currently live in an era in which Congress itself destroyed so much documentation surrounding the Capitol riots. The very sad truth, because God only knows what was destroyed when Julius Caesar torched Cleopatra's library. If anything were to happen to this very letter before I go to court again on November 21st, 2023, I'm very happy that I was the Salamanca High School class speaker for 2010, so I am fully prepared to make similar remarks orally into a federal courtroom's conveniently placed microphones. But I am also happy that those who have been thrown into Joe Exotic's federal medical scribbled words. Joe Exotic's Federal Medical Center for Life maintain prisoner rights, stating that they too have rights to speak to media and say anything they want to Kellen Quigley from the Olean Times Herald over the phone, or letters, or even your handwriting, Luke. Or even Timeline's email. Thank God. God is watching, as America requires only the defendant to raise their hand and say, open quotes, "So help me God," close quotes. I bought my house in Olean myself using my own money I worked for. How truly sad it would have been to lose that house, as my mother has been forced to pay its bills while I have been like this almost 2 years. My father produced me when he was just 20. He divorced my mother. Not long afterwards, a 1995 New York State, open quote, Winky versus Winky, close quote, family court decision had even been overturned by the New York Supreme Court before my very existence in the Jerry Springer-esque country helped establish grandparents' rights in New York State Family Court for the first time. My father had a lymph node cancer twice, a University of Tennessee college tuition debt to address, 3 more eventually future marriages after my mother, a failed business venture into Supertel cell phone store interest in Florida, his current wife, U.S. citizenship status to address in 2022, and admittedly questionable income status regarding the modern era decision, open quote, decision tree financial, close quote, tax documented business due to my grandfather purchasing him a car in fall of 2022 while I was at Allenwood, and due to him frantically calling my mother after the undocumented and unrecorded, open quotes, recessed, close quotes, conversation that took place outside of the court building on November 7th, telling my mother that the true nature of his financial and living situation in his Sinatra-owned Buffalo apartment, which, according to my mother, he already seems to be falling behind in rent payments on. I am an Olean homeowner who was tear gassed by national. Over here. Come on. Hello. There we are. Perfect. Sorry about that. National Guard in Minneapolis after arsonists destroyed a police station building. I am very happy. I willingly signed papers with probation employees before court on November 7th that they have my permission to speak to Horizons Mental Health about my brief time there when the leaders of group sessions acknowledged that yes, government demanding I exhaust my finances into my gas tank 3 times a week to go to Buffalo and back was a legitimate reason to have my open quotes mental health rights close quotes completely violated, as I learned that I have my father's Third Amendment rights are also being violated, as this court is basically now documented as cornering my father into housing me, a private homeowner, in his Sinatra-owned apartment, which he already forced an eviction from, all because his court rejected the initial validity of the Olean Cares facility for more local mental health sessions. Justice Roberts did validate Obamacare's constitutionality, much to Donald Trump's disgust, but as I recall, the Affordable Care Act does allow for the ability to choose your own doctors. I feel sorry for all the people who refuse to support Trump 2024 for whatever reason, as their personal safety appears to be at stake these days. Corrections officers at Allenwood gave me extra food in the cafeteria because they saw me as a Trump 2024 supporter, open quotes, unlike the pedophiles, close quotes, in their words. We live in an era which former prosecutors are taking the criminal defense side of things these days. I am very happy that we have 3 Trump-era appointees outnumbering Chief Justice Roberts personally on the U.S. Supreme Court. I would love to hear their modern interpretation of the Third Amendment regarding government mandating citizens to house soldiers, open quotes, close quotes, against their will. You're so dumb, Luke. Just your ramblings. Your ramblings. Like the whole previous page was talking about like your dad's problems, and then it just to sum it up, like how you shouldn't be quartered. You're not a soldier. You're a lunatic, and either you stay incarcerated or your dad hosts you in his home at his own. Like, that's his choice. If he says no, you stay incarcerated. So it's not mandating him to quarter a soldier, because you're not a soldier. You're a soldier in the army of lunatics. But that doesn't make you, the Third Amendment does not apply here, you idiot. Constitutional crises are human right violations. Are a human rights violation, and I have faith that this federal court people are dedicated to the Constitution and human rights. Had Adolf Hitler given felonies to the Jews and laughed as they cried for each other after he said, open quotes, now you legally can't talk, close quotes, the U.S. Supreme Court would have swept away all convictions concerning Jews forced apart into separate concentration camps on the grounds of freedom to assemble. I met Benjamin Ryan Teeter through Vermin Supreme, the FEO or the FEC documented presidential candidate who has appeared on Jesse Waters' Fox show, as well as my own living room, before the 2019 Olean Libertarian presidential debate on the Olean High School stage. I sent Vermon's house address to people like Christie at the Buffalo FBI so everyone could be on a fair playing field before she reminded this very court in June of 2023 that myself and Teeter were longtime romantically involved, male-on-male pair, as the stenographers typed away while the statements were made. I do recall seeing a 2020 Libertarian vice president candidate, Spike Cohen, present with Benjamin Teeter in front of me together at the 2020 open quotes Anarchon, close quotes, event in Virginia as Spike's security detail watched everyone present at the event. The Constitution also always won in this country's history on a side-by-side basis with human rights altogether, even if it took some time for the Americans to wake up to any potential Constitution and human rights crisis taking place at any moment in time. Although Matt Zenger, with probation, was just doing his job, open quotes, close quotes, as he reported to Katie Valentine's illegal attempt to have me arrested by the Hamburg police before this particular court incident occurred, as God continued to watch even without his own personal recording device. Let's see here. I'm sure even he sees the insanity these past 2 years has done to so many people. It takes fire to fight fire, so logic points to fighting insanity with insanity. It doesn't take fire to fight fire. There's a quote that says fight fire with fire. Like, that's referring to like firepower. Like, it's not like, it's like gunfire. Like, that's not fight fire with fire. It's not talking about like using a flamethrower to put out a freaking house that's on fire, idiot. So let's send the insane against the insane. Again, I remind readers of this letter that these past 2 years weren't entirely in vain, as similar lower-level court situations took place simultaneously. Years of my own internet groups, open quote, vitriol, close quotes, were noted as I first got to Niagara County Jail. I can't believe it took coming to Cattaraugus County Jail to finally meet my half-brother's half-brother, Michael Donner. Years of hearing, open quotes, we are a divided nation, close quotes, turns out to be because of millions of divisive personal situations taking place. I am thankful to be reading the Quran for the first time while here, thanks to somebody with Saudi Arabian and Yemen roots, preaching his faith to, underlined, to every last white-skinned person in the room on a daily basis. Stop being underlined. Open quotes, not an atom of injustice in any country's justice system. Those quotes, says this guy's Quran. My father, Kevin Winky's freedom to assemble rights aren't being violated when he tries hiring his ex-girlfriend from Yemen, Ekram, as recently as 2022, while he was finally helping establish his current wife, Fatima's citizenship from Morocco. I believe I do have faith that finally, as an inevitably second Trump administration appears to be on the horizon, that finally, at last, this, open quotes, "we are a divided nation," close quotes, sensation will cease to exist, and everyone's constitutional rights will exist at their fullest to everyone, without one example of inequality, of misconduct taking place towards one American. Thank you for reading and documenting Luke Marshall Winkie. Exact spelling of the legal name document of the on birth certificate and high school graduation certificate. Closed quotes, or closed parentheses. And then obviously page 11 is the Cattaraugus County Jail mail letter that was also registered in the court documents. All right, guys. Well, we will catch you next time for another boring conundrum of the Luke Winkie files. We'll see you next time, guys.